Hello everyone, welcome back to Fanoos Magazine.com. I am here with none other than Vanessa of Cairo, now based in Texas. How are you?
I'm doing great, Oriana. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be part of your program.
Of course, and it's an honor for me to always talk with you and joke with you and talk about everything belly dance with you, as we often do. And the upcoming issue is a very important topic, and it's one that I predict is going to become a very important topic, which is event production, of festivals, events, showcases, tours. How are we going to manage this? What insights can we all give each other? What is this art and science of producing these events? And for those of you that are not familiar with Vanessa, Vanessa lived in Cairo for 12 years and is the first and only American woman to run a production company based in Cairo. You had your own team, you had your shows, you were at five-star hotels, performing consistently, hiring other artists. You kind of did it all, and you're still doing it all. So, of course, when you got to Cairo, what was the inspiration for you to step into that role of producing and take on such a massive undertaking instead of, let's say, just performing?
Great question, Oriana. And I have the answer for you. It's very specific. But first I want to back up just a little bit because I was in Cairo for I was in Egypt for 12 years, from 2008 till 2020, when COVID basically, I came back to the States and was then in the States. Okay. But I was in a variety of different places, and the production company had its biggest work in Sharm el Sheikh, which is a tourist resort area. So I did do works and I did do plays and shows and more of my solo career on the back end of that 12 years, from 2015-ish onwards. I was in Cairo full time, and I still did perform and and I worked with some of the dancers that were in my production company. But the 6 years of full on, every single day, 7 days a week, holidays, weekends, nobody cared. We just had to do it all. Uh, that was based in Sharm el Sheikh. And so there's some things I want to say about that, because there were a lot of foreigners and there were a lot of Egyptians and Arabs. Okay. So the reason why I started a production company is, when I went to Egypt, I had these expectations of what things would be like, what it would look like. Now, this wasn't my first rodeo. I had been performing for a really long time in America, have my degree in dance, went to New York to do musical theater, trained there, went to auditions, developed a really thick skin, was dancing in, top Egyptian restaurants and nightclubs in New York City. So I was doing the work already. So I mean, I really thought I thought I was really good, and I thought I knew it all. I'll be honest with you. I look back and I'm like, hey, it did help prepare me, but I wasn't as prepared as I could have been. So I had to learn a lot when I got to Egypt. It's more about being in the culture and understanding the demographic there and what they're looking for. Since the time that I came, it has changed. Okay, that's probably a whole nother podcast. That's probably a whole nother interview for another day. But the reason I started producing was because I didn't love what was happening with the groups that I was seeing on the stage. I felt that people were trying to take advantage of the solo dancers. I tried to go and work with some of the people a little bit to understand what was going on. I didn't just go out there and say, I'm going to do it myself. I mean, that wasn't the first, but after a very short time, I quickly understood that I have talent and experience and skill that I can use, but I'm not going to let somebody take advantage of me and use that just for their own pocket. And so I said, well, I don't really love what I'm seeing here in these venues on these stages. I know Egyptian folklore. I have other colleagues and friends that are connected with the Sakafa, which is the uh, Ministry of Culture groups. Let's put something together, because I felt pretty confident that I could do well. And we did. And that's how it got started. But it was literally like, well, I don't really want to be, I'm embarrassed to go up on stage under this production company. It's not me. It's not what I worked so hard. You know, it's not what I spent thousands of dollars on in the States to come to Egypt to work for some guy who's going to make me go around to all these places. And, you know, so I mean, I know that might sound really negative. And here's the thing, like, honestly, I had people then who worked for me, and then I had to lead them and be exactly what it was that I did not want to find myself in. So, you know, but yeah, the real answer is I felt like I could do it justice. The dance, the art.
That sounds to me like something you always say in your Transform mentorship program, which is be the change that you want to be.
Thank
Honestly.
you. And thank you for being a part of it, Oriana. You are a founding member and co-creator. You have helped me really be able to do that. Thank you. It's true. You know, sometimes we don't find exactly what we're looking for. So, you know, they always say, like, you know, if people are inviting you to their table, you have to build your own and you sit at it. And so, you know, over the years, so we ran full time for 6 years. My first year in Egypt, 2008, I was in Cairo, worked with other production companies that did shows in the weddings, and became acquainted with a lot of dancers, which was great because they're the ones that told me about a show in Luxor that I auditioned for that I did. And then when that finished, went on to Sharm. So I got some experience not only working with Egyptians, but understanding things about the culture within that first year. It was instrumental, I believe, to the success of me being able to even be a foreign woman, you know, being able to do that. I can say this years later, after having worked in Charm and working with tons of dancers who came in and out of the company. Some would go, you know, their family would have a problem, they'd have to leave, they'd come back. But these guys, a lot of them, you know, they worked with us again in Cairo. I would be working with them. We would be dancing together in a play. They'd be my dance partner, or they'd be, you know, in the Fanoos Magazine dancing with some company or some group, and they'd be so excited to see me, and they'd run and take me to their producer and say, "This is Vanessa, this is who I worked with in Charm." It felt really good to have the dancers believing in the work that we did together, you know.
I can definitely see that. And I mean, honestly, like your name and your legacy has really stood the test of time for the work that you did there. And I think a lot of that is due to your efforts to uphold tradition and uphold local customs and uphold a higher caliber of standard. And for anybody that has been to Egypt, like, I mean, I know when I was there and I was backstage with the artists, or I'm performing on the Nile boat or something, you know, and those wonderful opportunities that I had in the brief time that I even got to visit, performing is performing no matter where you go. But event production is a business unto itself, as anybody would tell you. So what was some of the unspoken rules, or some of the things that you definitely had to do to succeed, especially, you know, this is a mixed crowd in Sharm el-Sheikh, like you said, where it's, you know, you have American or foreign tourists, and then you have native Egyptian audience members. And, you know, everywhere you go, it's a little bit different, just like almost like what you would do here, but it is still a very different environment.
That's a great question. So the first point is you've got to know your audience. Okay. So there were some hotels that really catered to Europeans or English or Italian. There were some hotels that really catered to people from the Gulf. There were some hotels like the Four Seasons, you'd have everybody. You'd have the upper echelon of people from everywhere. So you would have the Arabs, you'd have the you know, the wealthy Egyptians, you'd have, you know, this is like a high level expectations, you know, and I mean, and we worked in a five-star hotels. I mean, yeah, Four Seasons, Ritz, Sofitel, Sheraton, Hyatt, Hilton, Marriott, the list goes on. So the first point is understanding the audience. Who is coming, or is it just a mix? Then we would have to know management. Who's the management? Because sometimes you'd have an owner who's Egyptian, but the people who are running it are foreign. And that's not ironic. It's just the way it goes sometimes because they want to be able to cater to people from all over. So smart people would get people who understood how to be broadly appealing to everyone. So you would have to understand the management team and their kind of their style. Now, when you're going into audition, like for example, we'd go in with the Egyptian folklore dance show. I would be showing them, the maybe the flashiest costumes, our best couple dances, and just do a great job. Then, as we would develop the relationship, I would understand, who's running this thing really, and what's their personality. And believe me, I messed up a few times. I learned that you can't always, like, you could have a great idea. It could be the best idea in the world, but sometimes it's not what they want, and you've got to find a way to. Sometimes they have a box that they want to fit you in, and I hate to say that because I love creativity and I love being an artist, but there's a place for everything. So sometimes you have to be marketable for whatever it is that you're doing, and you can't just do what you want. Sometimes you can't just do what you want. You've got to do what it is that they're looking for. And then once they know you and like you, you've built a rapport with them, then they trust you to do other types of things. So this happened at Four Seasons. At Four Seasons, we went in to work in they had this really cool outdoor cafe area. It wasn't a fine dining restaurant, but they had snacks and food, and it was outside and it had a fountain and it was lovely. But it was right next to the fine dining restaurant Il Frantoio, which was an Italian, and it had an outdoor area. Well, we had to keep our music down. Now, this is really hard and extremely annoying when you're trying to do a show, but you don't want the people in the fine dining who are spending, a lot of money complaining. So also the people that are working at the managers of the show where you're in, they really want you to be happy and they want it to be powerful and impactful for the people, but you got this. So how did we navigate through things like that? We did our best, but it started out one way. And by the end, I have the food and beverage manager and the general manager saying, "Hey, Vanessa, what are we going to do for New Year's?" And then they're coming to me for ideas. But it took a while. The unspoken rule is, and I don't think it's unspoken, understand your audience, understand who is running the show, and find a way that you can appeal to them and still do what it is that you feel good about doing. You're not throwing yourself under the bus. You're not losing integrity. Like I never got up, like, no shade to anyone who ever got up and danced on a bar. Okay. No shade whatsoever. But some of these discos in Cairo, the girls would get up and dance on the bar. Like, I never did any of that. One New Year's Eve, it was probably one of the last New Year's Eve I was in Egypt before COVID. It was the last show of like 5 shows, and the floor was disgusting. There was like drinks spilled. It was just awful. And I said, to heck with it. I don't care. I'm going to get up on that bar because it's better up there than it is down here. So I can break my own rules, right? You could change, but the main point is know your audience, know who you're dealing with, know how you can appeal to them, and perhaps you've got to kind of win them over because that's life and that's business, or you find a way to make the idea seem like it's their idea.
I think those are all excellent points that are evergreen. Like that's never going to go away. And you also made a really good point earlier, which is that you came in as a foreign woman, and knowing Egypt the way that I do, but even here, stateside, there could be some particular challenges to that. Did you ever have any issues, or how did you navigate establishing authority in these environments?
Wow, great question. And yeah, I had challenges every day. I, I had challenges all the time, constantly, because it wasn't just that I was foreign or that I was a woman or that I was an artist. Okay, those are all like, you know, psh, 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 basically, that idea of you got to be what you're looking for. Like, if you want to be respected, you have to be respectful. And you can't go in there being like, well, everything you guys are doing is wrong. And sometimes I did. Sometimes I ran in there like a bull in a china shop, and that's not going to get good results. I did that a couple times. And look, I had some haters. I think anytime you go in and you do well, you're going to have people that are like, they're going to find something. I was fairly aggressive and very straight to the point, not much different than I am now. I definitely have couth, and I definitely have, I know how I can deal with people. And going through these experiences helped me with that more. But I am pretty upfront. And the thing I learned about Egyptians is most of them don't know how to say no. They will say anything and inshallah, inshallah, and they can really lead people down a path where they're never going to hire you, honey, but they're gonna make you feel like you've got every chance in the book, and then malash, something happened, and then it never happened. So you get frustrated. So I learned, you can't take things personally, but the things that I learned and issues that I went through is some of the best advice I got was when you go into a business meeting your first time, wear a suit, like wear pants, wear a blazer, look great, but don't let them look at you as you're a woman, right? But don't let them get an idea. And I had issues with some managers who really wanted to be able to control things, and they wanted people that they could completely boss around. And some of the managers really did not like me personally because they couldn't boss me around, or their superior loved me and they couldn't wait to get rid of me. They couldn't wait. They couldn't wait because then they could hire the people they wanted to hire that would possibly pay them off, or would, do whatever they wanted, or would make them feel important, or potentially date them. And none of those things were on the table. So there were definitely times, but the advice I was given by my beautiful, wonderful ex-partner Yasser, who we still work together. Actually, he helps us on the tour with our Cosmic Heart tours that we run now yearly. Um, Best advice, he was like, let them take you seriously. If you started off one way, they're never going to look at you like that. So let them see you in the business mindset. Once you're there and you get to know their personality, if you end up going to the hotel in a sundress or something, that's fine. But don't go into the meeting in a sundress. They're not going to take you seriously. And it sucks that had to be, but it is the truth. It is the truth. And I think that it's hard because you're a dancer. So it's like, it's your aura and your body, and you're selling this whole thing, but also, and I'm not just talking belly dance. I mean, if you're an actress, if you're a singer, it's your whole persona, and it's all of these things. But look at Kim Kardashian. She's a lawyer. You know what I mean? She's selling undergarments that snatch your waist, and she's smart. She kind of went things the opposite way, but in the end, just being able to I had to deliver, and that was the thing. I had people who didn't want me there, but I did such a great job with the group. I did. I mean, I will pat myself on the back. We brought quality. We brought something that they weren't having. So because of that, it made them even more mad. Damn it, they were like, ah, but had to just be able to let them feel respected, even though I knew, like, this guy, he's smiling at us. He's so two-faced. He can't wait to replace us. I made them feel important. Hello, sir. How are you today? And in the end, when we left, there were certain places it would happen here or there. We'd end up, losing a contract as a general manager, would move on to another hotel, and everything underneath would just go, psh, and it didn't matter who you were or how well you had done for the last 3 years. They didn't care. New people in, they're going to bring their friends. And, you can't get your feelings hurt about it. You just have to say, wonderful, what a great opportunity to have worked in this hotel. I still met hundreds of employees that are going to go to other hotels, and people would still call us and be like, oh, we miss you. Like, the show sucks, but like, whatever, and it's okay. What goes around comes around.
That is also, I think, evergreen advice, because that's a lot of what I hear here in America of, like, they went with somebody else, or somebody wants this, or someone want that is absolutely the nature of the business. Absolutely.
It is the nature of the business. And here's the other thing. Sometimes people will come back around to you. And that happened as well. They would try, the grass was greener on the other side of the fence. They'd try it out. And 3 months later, after nobody's on time, the audition, they brought in the best of everything and everything fell apart because they didn't really have the artists to support that greatness. They could pull it off for one show, but they couldn't pull it off consistently like we were. I told my crew, I told my dancers, I was like, every day is an audition. We can't get lazy. We can't get lackadaisical up in here. Like, every day you got to treat it like, because these people, some of these people might be seeing this show for the first time in their lives. What's the impression we're giving? But yeah, people were always chomping at the bit to try to take our contract. So we had to have a competitive edge.
Which leads me to my next question. What was the most complex or high pressure event you produced in Egypt?
Okay. I didn't produce this, but high pressure event was me dancing for the King of Bahrain. I did not produce that. But I'll tell you, the lady who was producing it is one of my dear friends, and I worked for her in Luxor. Her name's Violetta, and she's wonderful, and she still produces events. And so I learned a lot from her. So I have to throw this story in, because I learned a lot from her, and the type of situations that she was in, I found myself in later. So she's like, you may not get to finish the song. Sometimes if he doesn't like you, you just like, at least it wasn't Off With My Head, because I wouldn't be here now. But Off With Her Head. I don't like the way you shimmy. But anyway, I remember her being like, don't get your feelings hurt. Like if he's just like, now we invite you to leave, don't worry. But he's like, and scene. So that was when right before I started my production company, right between my contract working with her in Luxor. In the meantime, in this like few month interim in between ending that contract in Luxor and starting the production company in Sharm el Sheikh, I got to perform for the King of Bahrain. And so that right there, that felt like it was a show. I got paid for it. But man, to me, that was like worse than going into any sort of Broadway audition that I did in New York. It was like, that was the highest pressure thing I ever did, because I just felt like I may not even get to finish. I got to finish the song. I didn't do the whole show I had planned, but the song, I guess, was enough. And then she had all these people and entertainment, all these things lined up. So I just got to be a small fraction. But that was something that I was like, you know what? I do not envy this position. Okay. So that kind of set the tone. Later, I would say the first New Year's Eve at the Four Seasons in Sharm el Sheikh, they had finally, after working with them for some months, had come to me for the New Year's. And basically, our next year's contract was riding on that. And so we had these different areas of the hotel that they wanted to kind of weave everything together. So we did a procession, and we got a girl in a Cleopatra outfit, and we had the guys carrying her, and we had shows in different areas and wow moments. And that was a lot, because it was the beginning of my production company, and it was in a hotel that I really wanted to impress. And I even missed my brother's wedding. It was New Year's Eve that year, and 2010. It's okay. He's divorced now to that one and has since remarried. So who cares? I'm just kidding. But no, but I felt I was losing sleep. I felt horrible, but I was like, I got to be here. So our whole next year was riding on that thing. And I think looking back now, I would be like, oh yeah, we do this, we do that. Like I wouldn't lose sleep over any of it. Right. But in that moment, it was it was a really big deal. And it wasn't that it was so difficult to do. It was just that there was a lot riding on it. And it was one of the top hotels at the beginning of that career. I think I've done a lot harder things now, like for example, like with Jawahir Dance Company. Now I artistic direct that, and I run a full show. I mean, we've ran shows that was just us dancing, but we've ran shows now with other dance companies, bringing them in, like for summer soiree, and me running all aspects of inviting the guests, dealing with them, handling everything. I'm stage managing, dealing with the lights and sound, and handling it all while my group is still performing and me possibly performing. That to me is way more pieces and way more things to put together, and a lot more, just handling, getting, the marketing, which you have helped me with very much, and I appreciate that. And if anybody, guys, if you need some amazing marketing and graphics and stuff like that, and web design, Oriana is like fantastic. But yeah, I mean, looking back now, I feel like I've done a lot harder stuff than then. But back then, it meant that it was a lot riding on it. It was like I wouldn't eat if I didn't get to have those jobs.
I absolutely understand that position, and that does up the ante for sure. Look, it's easy to look back on it than it is to be in the moment and to have that amount of pressure on it. Speaking of pressure, okay, event production itself, by the very nature of it, has a lot of invisible labor in it. You have possibly tech crew, you have stage hands, you have sound, you might have lighting engineers if you're in a huge theater production. And you've kind of run the gambit, even in the time that I've known you. Like the shows for Jawahir are in a big theater environment versus some of the other events, like you have Rax Roundup coming up, and then you try to have everybody in kind of a restaurant or a more casual atmosphere. It's still good quality. But all of these things have different people that you absolutely have to work with, or they're part of your production team. So what behind the scenes roles or team members do you feel you have to conduct more business with? How do you navigate with? Because they often don't get seen by anyone, but they're absolutely integral to the production.
Yes, and I'm glad that you say that because I think everybody, I was taught when I was in college getting my degree in dance that like you can have the dancer, but you don't have show unless you have the lighting and sound, the stage managers and the costume people. You don't have a show, honey. So it's like having a restaurant. You got front of house and back of house. So everybody's important. And here's what I have seen in the belly dance world is a lot of dancers will, even kind of speak down to some of the people that are helping make the show run. And that is unacceptable, honey. That cannot happen, because here's the deal. And this is the truth coming from, and I will say classical dance, and I don't want to say that belly dance isn't real dance. It is real dance, but let's act like it's real dance then. Okay. Because if you went into a show where there was a modern dance company and a tap dance company, a ballet dance company, everybody is respecting they understand. I mean, maybe some people haven't, but we've got to be able to, and this is the other problem is people aren't taking with mentors. They may be learning online, which is cool, but people are not giving them the certain, just super valuable education of how to conduct yourself backstage or in an environment like this. Like, you're not the only one. Okay. If you do a solo show, you're the only one, and you could be backstage and, handle yourself how you like. And if the restaurant hires you, again, great and whatever. But when you're in a big setting like this, and whether it's a show in a theater or whether it is in a restaurant, it doesn't matter. Everybody's important. Everybody's important. The lady that, and this might be a volunteer who just said, the producer said, you can come and take the workshops for free, or you get a discount. Will you help me just call the people so that they know that they're up in two, in two dancers or whatever. So now, like the way I run my shows, I give everybody the list. I'm like, we're not babysitting. We're going nonstop. You know your cues. They know if they need to do a 10-second pause for you to get in your place. We're running this thing. I do it differently. I don't sit there and announce everybody. There's a list with everyone's name. There's little brief pauses, and the tables have the name. So I run things a little differently. But yeah, we need to know that the people who, first of all, you have to have somebody who's going to organize the lineup. So if you have a stage manager, now I would usually act as my own stage manager because I'm so used to it. And that way I'm not having to micromanage somebody else when I know that that's, but if I needed to delegate that, for example, Rock's Roundup, I'm delegating that to Maggie. She does a great job. Magdalena Fusaro, she does an amazing job. So she handles all aspects of the show order. Great. But you've got to have somebody who's managing that. You've got to know that your lights and sound are extremely important. You've got to have that. You've got to think about, are you having programs? Do you have a QR code that people are looking at that? You've got to think, how long is the show gonna, how long is the show gonna be? You got to run on time. You've got to think about changing areas. Oh my gosh, this would drive me crazy. When I was in Egypt, they would be like, oh, you guys can change in the bathroom, or you guys could change in this area in the kitchen. I'm like, we have Egyptian girls, they cannot be changing in an area where people can walk by. Like, that's not acceptable. But some shows that had foreign dancers would just do anything anywhere because they just didn't want to argue or stick up for themselves. And so I advocated, which is another reason why some people had a hard time with me, because I was like, no, no, sir, we certainly will not be changing in that area. We would have outdoor events like Bedouin dinner nights at Four Seasons. I keep bringing up Four Seasons. I promise they're not sponsoring me, but this was great because they were very good. They were very good with us, and we got a good rapport. But I had to educate them. We would be outside or doing something for the private villas, and I'm like, okay, if we can't have a room inside the villa, and there's no like bathroom area it's like inside their villa, then we need like one of those cabana things that goes outside with a light, and then we could pin the curtains up, in a mirror, and we could use a private cabana. But like, we got to create something. You can't just like, we're not going to be like stuffed in a corner or holding up a veil or a towel. Like, we were not going to do that. Like, make a tent for us, do something. So this whole advocating for people helped me be able to say, hey, when we're doing a show, if you're in a theater, great, you've got your changing rooms, but you also have to organize that. You can't just let anybody go anywhere. You've got to know, who are my artists, where are they going? You can't have somebody spread. Oh, please, the answer is, don't spread all your stuff out and act like you're taking over the place. Like, you have this much place in front of you, stack your things, be mindful of others, stuff like that. So I think that the stuff that I learned as a young dancer doing competition dancing and doing recitals and stuff like that, and stuff that I pass on to my students and the competition girls that I work with, are things that adults who never did the dancing before are missing. Please be mindful of others, respect everyone in the backstage. All of the people are important. And you've got to think, I've been to so many events that were not organized well that it helped me understand exactly what I need to do to be able to accomplish that.
Music to my ears as somebody that has stagehanded, run sound at many shows. And I will also add, just as a ride on to that, is that you can have fun and still be respectful.
Hello. There's no reason. Yes, 100%. You can't have fun and still be respectful. And the thing is, I know sometimes at these events, like maybe you're catching up with people you haven't seen in a long time, and you're talking, you're excited. I get it. But yeah, I mean, the show's running. Understand that like the person who's calling your name is not your enemy. Now, I tell you, a couple of the last shows that I produced when I had, other different guests in there, I said, Vanessa, it was so calm. It was like no stress backstage. And I was like, well, that's because I know what I'm doing. My people know what they're doing. And all of us are where we're supposed to be when we're supposed to be there. And I had a couple runners that would go and tell the people, and all of these professional dance companies or people that were coming from like an Indian Dance Academy or something like that, they are taught how to conduct themselves. And there was no problem because everybody did what they were supposed to do when they were supposed to do it. So I don't need to I'm not here to babysit anyone. I never, even in my dance with my production company in Egypt, I might be belly dancing somewhere while they're doing a show. I will say this though, that the management would come to me and they'd say, Vanessa, when you're here, they do better. And so sometimes I would secret shop my shows. I'd be at the Hyatt, like hiding behind a pillar, and somebody would see me, And so the first dance would be like something, and then the second dance they're all like super gung ho. I'm like, dang it, they saw me. Somebody caught wind that I'm here. But it's good to know that. And yes, you can have fun without being disrespectful. And to me, I think you should be respectful. And you never know. That's the other thing. You never know who it is. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know who you're talking to. So be respectful and be nice, because that could be the person that's going to invite you to dance at their you look you and I, we are colleagues, we are friends, both of us are doing things. Let's say you're backstage helping me out because you're my friend. Let's say that you could be dancing in the show, but you opted to help me. So you're backstage and somebody's nice with you and it's like, oh, what's your name? Oh, Oriana, are you with Fanoos Magazine? Yes, blah blah blah. By the end of it, they're going to write an article for you. By the end of it, they've invited you to go teach at their event that they're having. Or it could go another way. They're rude to you and they get no opportunities and no possibilities, and they have no idea what they missed out on.
10,000%. I've always said a really good chunk of the opportunities that I've personally had has been because I was nice to somebody, or because I took time to talk to someone, I took time to help somebody, I would pin them in their costume, I, do the extra mile. And conversely, there have been some things that I have turned down in participating since, or I do no longer participate in because people were rude to me.
Yeah,
My
exactly.
efforts were not recognized. So you absolutely want to stay in that professional realm, whether you are producing the event or you are attending the event. That is absolutely true.
Right. And I'd like to add that everything goes in a circle. So maybe at one point in your life, you're participating as a student, and the next time you're a guest artist. And then the next, so maybe you're a student and audience member. Okay. But the problem is too many people are so concerned about dancing all the time that they are not audience members anymore. So we've got this whole show full of dancers dancing, and nobody is actually watching what's going on. And that you really should, because you'd learn a lot. But everybody thinks they're too good to watch and learn. So that's another thing. But hey, so you start off maybe as a student and you're in the audience, and then you get asked to be in the show, and then maybe you get asked to be a guest headliner, and then maybe you get asked to perform, and then maybe you decide to produce your show. So usually most producers have been in all those stages, so they understand. But a lot of people in those other stages have not been in the producers. Now, every now and again, you'll get a producer who never did any of that, and it sucks usually. Why? Because they don't understand anything. That'd be like a restaurant owner who wasn't a dishwasher, who wasn't a busboy, who wasn't a waiter, who wasn't a hostess, who wasn't a bartender. Okay, yeah, okay, but now you need these people. You need to understand and learn from all of them to understand how these things actually operate. You can have a beautiful building and a great chef, but how are you going to run it? So I think shows are like that. You've got to have you've got to have a good chef. You got to have a good working kitchen staff that works back there, that understands. That's your technicians, your lights, your sound, your people that are back there pulling your veil off the stage, or saying, hey, the next people you can stand in the wings, or whatever. So yeah, absolutely. And it all has to do with opportunities. Everything I'm doing now is because of the relationships I made 10, 15 years ago. Everything I've done has been, hey, people like to work with people they like. So the reason I got the audition for the show in Luxor is because of the people that I worked with in Cairo. The reason I was able to go and get these dancers for my production company is because of the people I met in Luxor. The reason I was able to go dance for the King of Bahrain was because of the lady I worked with in Luxor. The reason, I mean, and it goes around and around like this. So sure, maybe I was the talent, maybe I was the one who got up there and performed well, but I wouldn't do anything if I didn't get opportunities. And you got to be grateful. So then the managers, the hotel managers who hired me that we kept good rapport with, some of these people we're still friends with. 15 years later, I was just at the Sheraton in Cairo after we finished our Cosmic Heart tour. There was bad weather in the States. I had to stay for a couple extra days. We're in this restaurant at the Sheraton. Our waiter, we start talking about certain hotels, and our waiter, his mentor, he was a head waiter. One of his mentors that helped him in guest services and all of this and hospitality was one of the guys that we worked with all those years ago in Sharm el Sheikh. And he has now since moved on to a different hotel in Cairo. But it's just the world is so small. So you have to treat people well. You've got to know that you're going to run into them again. So you never know. The girl who's the beginner girl who's sitting in the audience, one day she can be a star. I had people who were kind of rude to me when I was coming up. I had some people who were very nice. And then I also had people that were like, oh, yeah, she's young. And, I've been that young, pretty one, that was brand new, bright eyed and bushy tailed, and definitely had some haters. It was funny because I called one person out on it years later. And she wasn't really a hater, but she didn't have anything to say to me and just didn't try. And she's like, yeah, but sorry about that. But like now we got things to talk about. And sometimes that's how it is.
There's a saying in Egypt in Arabic that Egypt is a one-bedroom apartment. But I think it's important for everyone to keep in mind that the entertainment industry is a one-bedroom apartment. And the more that you niche down, so by the time you get to Bellydance specifically, it's definitely a one-room thing. Like, you will run into people again. You will be in the same room with them again. These things are extremely important. Now, let's talk about something that people ask me a lot about personally, so I want to run it by you. You're running tours to Egypt now, and you have your own event, Rax Roundup, where you're at the helm of these things, and you do have collaborative efforts and such. But what a lot of people are concerned about with running events, particularly festivals, competitions, showcases, it always comes down to usually two things. The big one being attendance. We're worried about attendance. You don't really have much of an event if people don't go. And of course, cost, because now we're in the business of belly dance. We're in the business of event production, where you have the amount that you spend versus the amount that you bring in. And you have to ask yourself as a producer, am I trying to turn a profit? Am I trying to do something for the community? Is there a place where those two things meet? So what is your process in organizing these events where it specifically makes sense to do so?
Great question. Well, a lot of people who do festivals need to do a competition to bring money in. Okay, so like when I do an event, sure, I might be making a little bit of money like off of Rax Roundup, okay, but I do it because I love it. I don't do it for a big paycheck. I do it because this is the one time in the year that I'm organizing something, and I'm doing in-person workshops for the community, because there's tons of teachers in the area, and I've had a lot of these teachers for years support me. Okay. So I'm not trying to go in and start teaching regular classes. I want them to make their money and have their livelihood. I support them, and they come and they support me. So to me, there are a lot of costs, and you've got to see, I think sometimes people, they get ahead of themselves. I think what you got to do is you got to build it. You got to start small, get people to like you. If people don't like you, they're not going to come. If they don't know about you, they're not going to come. Also, it would be really great if you could have like some sort of calendar and a rapport with the other organizers in the area, so that you could look and say, hey, oh, you're doing your thing on this date. Well, leave like a month in between at least, or we could co-promote these things and we do discount things, but like, don't just put stuff 2 weeks before and after and expect there to be attendance. I mean, there are etiquette. Of course, a lot of people have forgotten or they never knew. So there should be this rapport that the local, if we're talking local community stuff, okay, hey, there's this thing that happens in Orlando, there's this thing that happens in Miami, there's this thing that happens in Melbourne, there's this thing that happens in wherever else, and you spread them out a little bit, and then it gives everybody the chance to save some money and be able to do that. Okay, so you got to look at the calendar, or maybe you don't care. You said, to heck with everybody. I'm going to do my thing, and whoever shows up, that's fine. But you got to know, like, who are the people that are going to support you and want to come, or who's your guest artist? Is that person a draw, and what does that mean? So for me personally, like the tour, we're only taking 16 people on the tour. Now I'm running this with Sadie. Okay, so Sadie and I, we developed Cosmic Heart Tours. She has been running other tours for many years based around a dance festival in the summertime. I lived in Egypt for years and I never had time to do that. People ask me about it. I'm like, I don't have time. But now we wanted to curate something that is really authentic and something that they're just not going to get anywhere. So, yeah, are we making a little money off of it? Sure. However, guess what? There is so much that goes into just being there, the planning, being ready with all contingency plans, handling all the administrative stuff. I mean, it's a lot. So when you spread that out over the months of the whole year that lead up to that, it's not a lot. So sure, there's a little bit at the end of that, but again, we do it because we love to share this experience with people. It also leads to other opportunities. It leads to more invitations to go places. It leads to more workshops, private coaching. It leads to people joining my mentorship program. So it's not just for that one paycheck. I don't ever look at anything like that. And I know some people are all about the money, but to me, I feel like people can feel that. I want to give people an experience because everything else will come. If you're coming from the right place, you'll get the opportunities and it opens up lots of possibilities. But if you're just being a stickler and you're just, but I get it, like you've got to cover your costs. So like, for example, I used to do a Dallas Fort Worth intensive when I was still based in Egypt. And the studio owner, I was renting, and then the prices changed. And I felt bad because I didn't want to change the location and I still wanted to give that person the business. But they started asking, they had rented their studio out for somebody to film like a movie or something. And they took a lot of money. And all of a sudden they thought they could take a lot of money just no matter what. And I was like, well, I can go to another studio and get it for, way less. So I'm going to do that. Like it was sad for me because I didn't want to not work with that person anymore or support that studio. But I had to because they were pushing me into a position I didn't want to be in. And I had to make the decision to go elsewhere. That was rough. That was not enjoyable. That was difficult for me because I, had a relationship with that person. And that didn't ruin the relationship, but it made me realize that person was more about the money. And I had been planning the cost of everything based on what it had been. So a good thing to do is to always communicate, like say if you rent a theater, is to communicate with the people and say, we'd love to do this again next year. Are you guys going to be able to secure the same rate or a similar rate? Are you going to be able to help me with that? Are we going to be able to? So keep the communication open so that you can't assume like she should have kept it what it was. That was the agreement we had. She didn't need to do that, but she chose to. Well, then I was forced to move because I had already based my budget off of that much. So I would say people need to look at all of the things. They need to add 25% on to whatever the costs are. And then they need to have a little bit left over for wiggle room in case anything goes sideways.
Completely agree. Completely agree as somebody that produced a lot of events in the past. It is a lot of work. It's definitely a labor of love in a lot of ways. I think you definitely have to have your priorities and your goals in alignment with what you're doing. And I do think the environment is in constant flux, of what people are looking for, when they go to events, when they go to festivals, if there's a competition or not, and why there is or is not. This is going to dictate a lot of your event planning. So I'm actually really excited about your tours. I've been to your events. I help with your events, obviously. So
And I'm so sad that you're not going to be able to come this year, but I understand. But I'll tell you, having you there on the first year of Rocks Roundup was invaluable. It was just wonderful. Your performance was beautiful. You helped at the registration and just got everybody amped up. And so I can do it. I've done it before. I can do it again. But let me tell you, your presence will be missed. But I really appreciate, I really, really appreciate the support and everything that you do. Absolutely.
Well, actually, that's another really good point for all event organizers out there. You kind of want to make sure that your staff is knowledgeable in what they're doing. So make sure that you have your eyes peeled for those people that are helping backstage and have some event production. We have like you said, we have more dancers than we do backstage work usually, and it's not just a simple matter of volunteering. You do need some know-how.
Can I add something to that real quick? So when I was in college, all of us dancers had to take stagecraft, all right? And we had to learn how to make the back, the scenery, and we had to do different things, study all about it. And what I thought was great, because here we are, we're in the show, but we had to learn, we had to help other people with their shows. And I think it would be a wonderful idea if certain producers had programs for certain dancers to say, look, you can maybe take these workshops for free, but you can perform in the show, but you also help with this. I think that will also help people be more humble and more understanding of the thing, what it takes. Because to me, if you've got somebody with bad vibes who volunteered and they get nervous or they're very reactive to people, that's going to make it worse. You need people who understand what to do, and also people who don't get their feelings hurt easily, because a lot of dancers, especially the ones that aren't professional, because usually professional dancers can handle anything. It's usually the novice dancers and the beginner dance, and it's nothing wrong with beginner dancers. You gotta learn somehow, but it's usually the ones that haven't had a lot of experience that something broke. And I mean, I'd be in the taxi cab, sewing my costume, like, oh my gosh, and everything is a big deal when you're newer at it. And so what happens is you've got people backstage freaking out about things. You need who are actually like, yeah, I've done this before. So it would be way better. And I think that's good. Like when you are a producer and you have other friends that know what they're doing, I rely on the people that I know will be calm, that I know will handle it well, that will, kind of diffuse the situation, basically, be Mary Poppins if they have to be. And and I think a great way to be able to kind of mentor younger dancers is to be able to let them be a part of that. And you have to kind of develop this, take them under your wing and let them be a part of that so they can perform, but then they also get to, or they could take the workshops, but you're not going to be in the show this time. You're going to help with the show. You're going to see what goes on and you're going to help. And I think that would be a fabulous way to start teaching people the different things that go into production.
That is actually a fantastic idea. We should do that.
Let's create a program.
Let's create a program. Let's do something else.
We always come up with great ideas when we talk, and now everybody gets to hear our idea. Listen, if you want to do that idea, do it in your local community and tell us about it. Share it with us. Share with us how you created that program for your local community, because honestly, the more other people know, the easier our lives get.
10,000%. I cannot thank you enough, Vanessa, for all of your insight, your years of experience here and abroad. If anybody wants to connect with Vanessa, all of her links will be below this video. And of course, you can always visit her website that I made, vanessaofcairo.com, and follow her on all socials. Thank you so much, Vanessa. We're all looking forward to the Cosmic Heart Tours, Rocks Roundup, and Jawahir's Summer Soiree. We'll talk to you soon.
Big love. Thank you.